All righty. Well, let's get started, shall we? I want to welcome everybody to our webinar today. We're going to be focused on the block and tackle of EPDs in concrete, critical, obviously, as we move forward. Couple of introductory remarks, and then I'll introduce our esteemed colleagues here that are presenting today. You know, CALCIMA sees quite clearly the writing on the wall and the path forward. EPDs are going to be a critical tool as embodied in federal policy, state policy, and the private markets are starting to request some effort be put into decreasing the carbon of construction materials. So this is not new. We'll be talking a lot more about that at our annual conference next week. But our members have made it clear to us that we really need to get out in front and lead, because there's so much innovation going on in industry right now that we need to lead. We need to embrace these tools as we look at decreasing carbon in our materials. And we need to lead the policy discussion to ensure we have predictable trajectories forward as we make it happen. So I do want to thank the many members who have been engaged in the discussion for this issue over the last couple of years with policy. As you know, we did get in front of a piece of legislation last year that ultimately didn't make it to the governor's desk, but in an effort to create a predictable path forward for our largest partner, our largest customer, in this case represented by Dominica with Caltrans. But you know, we need to continue to be able to attract federal funding and maximize our state funding, and to do so, engaging on this issue is critical. So with me today, I'm pleased to say Brian online here is with Climate Earth. He covers North America sales for Climate Earth. He joined Climate Earth in 2022, but he has a diverse experience in managing an array of projects in the construction industry, including experience in research and development, technical services, etc. So he brings a wealth of knowledge to Climate Earth and to us as our critical member and partner in this journey to engage carbon. Hussein is also with Climate Earth. He's the North American Implementation Manager. He's an experienced environmental engineer. He's got experience in civil engineering, managing construction projects, and a PhD in environmental sustainability engineering from Michigan Technological University. And he's done the life cycle assessment work, the renewable energy work, water resources, air quality, even solid hazardous waste. So he brings a great deal to the table. And then with our most important partner in this journey, right, as we continue to build the foundation of California's economy, Dominica is the branch chief of the, and I always have to slow down here, statewide materials support branch within the materials engineering and testing services subdivision at Caltrans. So she's the branch chief for the materials side of METS, as many of our members will know it. That branch is working with the various groups within Caltrans to implement the EPDs on Caltrans projects in line with California's Buy Clean Act and the department's goal to be a climate leader, of which we're proud to be a partner and a supporter. And she's been supporting the department since 2016, and her degree is in civil engineering from the University of California, Davis, right here across the river from where I am. And then finally, Matthew's with NRMCA, and Matthew is a graduate of DePaul University. So he's got his degrees in poli-sci and a master's degree in sociology. So I always worry about whether he's analyzing me when I'm on a call with him. But he focuses on public policy and codes. So as manager of codes and sustainability programs for the National Ready Mix Concrete Association, he provides support to members and manages sustainability certification programs, including EPDs. So with that, we've got a terrific panel. We've got a whole lot of material we're going to hit. The goal here is that those of you here walk away with a better view of exactly what is it going to take, right? What does it take to get there from here so that we can engage this, we can help define our trajectory and meet the demand and the needs that are out there that are going to drive our industry in the future. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Brian. I do want to ask that if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A. So if you have questions as we go along, put them in the Q&A. We may interject and answer some questions along the way, or we'll do it at the end. All right, Brian, over to you.
Perfect. Thank you for that introduction, Robert. We are extremely excited to be a member of CALCIMA and to help our fellow members today. I'm going to share my screen real quick. Just give me a thumbs up, Hussein. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
All right, perfect.
Yes, I can.
Lovely. All right. So let's go through this. So what we'll do is I'll give you a little brief about Climate Earth, just to let you know who we are, what we do. We'll go through some ABCs of EPDs, kind of break it down, make it a little simplified. And then I'm going to take you through one of our EPD generators. I want to show you how easy it is if you sign up for our services and softwares to create an on-demand EPD. So since 2012, Climate Earth has focused on developing tools to quantify the global footprint of North America manufacturing. Today, our market share of ready-mix EPDs generated is approximately 95%. So we are in over 850 plant locations currently using our services and software. We understood the importance back in 2012 of EPD automation, and it is there that we continue to innovate and lead. Like I said, we were the first in the industry to automate and digitize EPDs. And one of the things that's special about us is we are 100% focused on the concrete industry. We do on-demand EPDs for ready-mix. We do on-demand EPDs for CMU and block. We have on-demand EPDs for cement manufacturing. We do product-specific aggregate EPDs, and then we also do plant average aggregate EPDs, and that's the same for precast. Finally, we work in advanced materials as well. There's a lot of private funding and new innovative technologies, advanced materials, glass pozzolans, mining of old fly ash deposits. We work with those companies to kind of help quantify the GWP of that manufacturing process. Again, 100% focused on the concrete industry. We think that having such a narrow but specific focus allows Climate Earth to develop software tools that satisfy needs better than any of the competitive offerings. Enterprise quality, proven reliability, paramount to developing sustainable success. This is just a quick overshot of local and national companies that work with us, just to let you know that we are reliable. Security and scalability is paramount for us, and we take pride in it. We also support ASTM and RMCA, and as members of CALCIMA, we are proud to be a resource whenever possible. All right, EPDs. Environmental product declarations, and again, you probably hear this all the time, compared to a nutritional label. It's essentially a way to quantify and report the environmental impacts of a material based off a life cycle assessment. Life cycle assessment is an ISO standards-based method for analyzing the materials, energy use, and emissions of a product. Right now, EPDs are the international standard for measuring global warming potential. You've probably seen it. It's always spec'd out under GWP. This is essentially known as the carbon footprint of ready-mix. As of right now, in the US, construction EPDs only calculate cradle-to-gate embodied impacts. Our system will break down these specific categories statistically, and they can show you where your A1, which is your material, your A2, which is your transportation, and your A3, which is your manufacturing hotspots are. We have a great statistical button that will show you the GWP, and we break it down into categories, and then we'll total it for you. I'll take you through a demo a little bit later and show you. We'll build out a mixed design, we'll refine it a little bit, and then we'll publish an EPD. So concrete producers in North America will be, or already have actually, transitioned from a traditional market in one which global warming potential is kind of seen as an equal buying metric. Your traditional criteria was strength, workability, and durability. It's transitioning to where GWP is considered an equal buying metric. Our mission at Climate Earth is to provide you with tools so you can see where the impacts are and help you to refine a design to meet specific thresholds that are put in place. Our goal is we want you to thrive in this new market of low carbon construction. Utilizing our services, we hope to help you be competitive or win more profitable bids, and you can use it as a tool to become a market leader as well. So what's driving EPDs? What's driving GWP as being a specification criteria? Well, in order to reduce embodied carbon, designers, developers, architects, project managers, they need to know what the carbon footprint of the material is. Starting in January 2023 and refined in May 2023, federal buy clean legislation is looking to require Type 3 product-specific EPDs for projects in which federal funding is involved. This table to the right is actually a table published by the General Service Admin, maximum limits of GWP, global warming potential for concrete used on publicly funded projects. What you would see is a 5,000 PSI specified concrete straight class. The GWP for a top 20% producer would be 305. GWP for a top 40% producer would be 357. And then the better or average limit is 382. So this is basically your good, better, best, where I also was on a call with the GSA back in July, and they kind of described it as a gold, silver, bronze type category. We've seen this being adopted by private companies as well. Robert mentioned that. So your Googles, Amazon, Facebook, Metas, they've all decided to put extreme importance on carbon budgeting for their projects, GWP thresholds. I mean, we see it. I think we just have to realize that GWP and EPDs are becoming normalized as another bid selection criteria. Now, this is great. So this is Federal Highway Association shared these new baseline reporting numbers for 2023. This just gives you an idea of the growth and how many states will now be putting importance on EPDs. So the baseline was from April 2023. In May 2025, we expect to have 35 states making EPDs a priority. As you can see, California will have it institutionalized by 2025. At least that's the goal. This just gives you, it's grown. I mean, the baseline was, I think, 3 that were demonstrating, assessing, and institutionalizing EPDs. And the goal of May 2025 is an uptick to 19 and then 35 overall. This is a visual aid of development projects likely to require EPDs. Like I said, federal funding, and then also your private companies. So if you are working on projects such as data centers, distribution centers, federal institutions, large cities, corporations, military bases, universities, warehouses, port of entry projects. I mean, EPDs will be required, and it's not going to be a industry average EPD. It's likely that it will require a Type 3 product specific EPD that's been externally verified. And that segues nicely into EPDs are also seen as a lead requirement. They generally contribute 1 or 2 points to the project. But I like to show this slide because I want to show you, if you do have an environmental product declaration and you are using Climate Earth software, you would select product specific Type 3 EPD that's been externally verified. External verifiers are companies such as NRMCA, who's on the call with us today, and ASCM. The second portion of this is the type of reduction. Now, this is something that we'll see when we go to the demo, but there's a minimum 10% reduction in GWP impact and a minimum 20% reduction in GWE impact. We actually have a lovely little tool that'll break this down for you. So say you just came to me and you're like, okay, that's great. We love your spiel, but what's the actual path to generating our own EPDs for our company? Well, that's exactly what this slide breaks down for you. So there are 6 stages to generating an EPD while working with Climate Earth. The first stage, we're going to gather your data. We're going to gather your production materials, your mode of transport. We're going to gather utilities, ancillary materials, water, and waste. This is a guided process. We're going to assign a project manager who's going to work with you. They'll schedule weekly calls. We have data sheets available in traditional Excel, and we also have an online console, whichever one you prefer. We will work with you to make sure we gather everything and make it as easy as possible. From there, our team of lifecycle analysts compiles the data and they complete a lifecycle assessment study. While we're doing that, we'll go through something that's called EPD customization. Our implementation teams work with you to customize your EPDs. We want the template to reflect you, your company, your corporate identity. From there, we compile everything and we send it off to the third-party verifier. So we submit the LCA report for you and we send it to verification. Once verified, we go live. Your customized EPD generator is ready. You can generate EPDs instantly for any mix, anytime, anywhere. Included in our services is a free annual update. Should you make a change to material, transportation, manufacturing, it's all included with your subscription to our generator. You can update these at any time. I say generator, we have two actually. I have something called EPD Essential, and I have something called EPD Advantage. So both of them produce EPDs. Both of them let you see the GWP results prior to publication. Both of them have a breakdown of GWP statistics by material. The Advantage feature does a few extra things. You can save mixed designs as drafts. So you have an EPD, you know the global warming potential of a mixed design, but maybe you don't want it quite published yet on NRMCA or ASTM's website or uploaded to EC3. That's fine. You can save it as a mixed design draft. Have advanced benchmarking capabilities, which will show you where your mixed design compares to the industry average, and then also where it compares to that GSA table we mentioned before. We have an advanced library where we store your EPDs, and we also have the biggest kicker of them all, QC system integration. So say you're running Command, QC, Quadrel, Stonemont as your QC system. We have the ability to integrate with that QC system. And so you would select a mixed design and a button would populate and it just says get EPD. You don't even have to leave your QC system. That mixed design will be sent to us. We will generate an EPD and put it back into your QC system so you're bid ready. So no time lost, no having to get out. Now, however, if you would like to go into our software, I'm going to show you a quick demo right now. This is what our EPD generator looks like. You have a couple options. This plant list right here will be all the plants that you have utilizing our services. I'm in a test demo environment right now called Bridgeview Concrete. But what you can see, I can go to any plant and I can look up any EPD that I've created at that said plant. I think the most helpful thing today will be we'll build out an EPD mix design. So we'll go and, given this is California, we'll select California. Now, mix code is necessary. All this information is listed on the EPD. So we give a mix description. I like to do interior concrete slab. We'll call it 5,000 PSI, and we'll say it meets that compressive strength at 28 days. This is going to be in the top right corner of the EPD, and it is important. From here, we just hit next. Now, this is the great thing about our data collection process. We're collecting all of your production materials with mode of transport, and we're doing that. And they're all going to be listed right here. So this will be completely reflective of all your raw materials. Now, you would just build it out like you would normally build out a mix design. For demo purposes, I like to keep it real simple. We'll do a type 1-2 cement to start. We'll call it 600 pounds. We'll do a fine aggregate. Now, what I love about our system, as you can see, you start typing, it starts sorting. So in the beginning, this is a full drop down of all my materials. Well, I'm just looking for sand, so make it easy. I type in sand, it auto sorts. We'll do 1,200 pounds. Now, same thing for aggregate, and it can be any identifier that you have. So say I want it crushed. I want a crushed aggregate, if I could spell correctly. I find crushed aggregate. If I type in AGG, auto sorts, I found crushed aggregate. Really simple to use. User interface is extremely important. Our CEO was a software guy. It's a mineral water reducer. Okay, so basically, as you can see, real simple mix design. This is just for test purposes. This isn't, a mix design that you're possibly running, but I wanted to show you how you get to the refinement page. Now, this right here is important. Remember how we said global warming potential was going to be on that GSA table? Well, 5,000 PSI mix. Let's see. 5,000 PSI mix needs a top 20% producer number of 305. 357 is silver, 382 is bronze. So let's go back and see where we're at. All right, we're at 374. So we're at a spot that's in between the bronze and the silver. What can we do here? Well, there's a couple things. So this is 375 GWP per cubic meter of concrete. So maybe I want to refine this a little bit. A lot of people, they use in a 1L. So I go back and I supplement the type 1-2 with a type 1L cement. Now, a disclaimer, obviously, your mix designs is proprietary mix design. All this is held within the system. This is never going to be listed on the EPD. We'll go back to calculate. All right, perfect. So we took it from 374 down to 347. Satisfied with that, but maybe we want to see, okay, well, how do we hold up to industry average? Well, that's perfect because I have a benchmark right here that'll show you where this mix design and how it compares to the industry average. So the industry average for a 5,000 PSI mix design in San Francisco is going to be 378 GWP. The mix design that I'm running in this test function right here, 347. That's 8.17% below industry average. So that's fantastic. I have the ability to download this as a JPEG. I can download it as a PDF, or I could print or view in full screen if I wanted to add it to a PowerPoint presentation. Close this out. All right, so 347 is good, but maybe we want to try to get into that top 20%. How would we go about doing that? Well, a lot of people might just supplement with the SCM. So right now, I'm just going to take 100 pounds out of the cement and do 100 pounds of fly ash and see what we can get it down to. Perfect. We're right there at that threshold. GSA benchmark capabilities. I have a 297. Where would I fall? Am I a top 20%, top 40%, or am I average or better? As you can see, the line right here, 297, falls within the threshold of 305. So I can visually show that I am in that top 20% for the GSA table. So again, you can download this as a JPEG, you can download it as a PDF, you can print it, whatever you like. So this is fantastic. So we love that number. How did we get there? Like I said before, statistics. This is a full-on breakdown of all your global warming potential per section. So this is material, this is my transport, this is my manufacturing, and this is my total. The reason this is important, the reason this is good, I can kind of find out where hotspots are. Maybe, all right, I've done everything as far as mix design that's capable to bring this GWP number down, but I still want to get lower. Maybe I start looking at my transportation metrics. Right here, crushed aggregate has a GWP of almost 28, where everything else is in single digits. So maybe that's telling me that I'm bringing this crushed aggregate in, and I should look for a more local producer to lower that GWP number. All right, perfect. So informed decisions as we try to bring down our GWP. Like I said before, if you didn't want to, you're satisfied with this 297, but you didn't necessarily want to publish an EPD right away, we have the ability to save this mix as a draft. We just implemented this new feature at a request for a client of ours. And they said, we'd love if we could show a mix design draft, which is a one-page document. I'll show you here in a second. We'd love if we can show it with and without a mix design. So maybe if I wanted to share it internally with my QC people and have them make some cylinders and us do some compressive breaks, we'd include the mix design. Say we wanted to share it with a client and we didn't want the proprietary mix design on there. I could click this button right here, include mix design. not included, hit yes. This is a mix design report. So it shows what plant it's coming from. It'll show you the data report. It'll show you the comparison to the regional average, and then it has a full-on breakdown of nutritional label. GWP is specified in cubic meters, but at the request of our clients, they'd like to see that number in cubic yards. We include it as well. So this is just a one-page internal document. You can put the mix design on here. You can submit it without the mix design, whatever you prefer. Let me go back quick. Now, the reason I did that is I wanted to show you something. I just created a draft mix design. I just did it. You saw me do it. I go back to San Francisco plant and I just search draft. Now, what I'm looking for is right here. I just created this mix design report and it's already available in EPD lookup. So I'm satisfied with that mix. The 297 was a great GWP. I'm ready to publish this thing. I don't have to do anything but click here, find it under EPD lookup, and click publish. It'll give you a quick shot of the nutrition label, what your global warming potential is, what your acidification is, consumption of fresh water, and smog factors. It'll tell you the product components of the mix design. I love everything about this, so I'm going to hit submit mix and publish EPD. Click of a button, we have a type 3 product specific EPD that's been externally verified. It gives you the company, the plant, the program operator, which will be your verifier, the date of issue, and the validity. Over here is our GWP. A little bit more information. The life cycle assessment system boundary, like I said, it's A1, A2, A3, so material, transport, manufacturing. And then our final page is a full-on breakdown of the environmental indicators from the life cycle assessment study. Now, I take you through that because I just wanted to show you how easy it is. If you were ever concerned about what would be necessary to create EPDs, I just showed you software that has point-to-click functionality, and you can create an EPD with the click of a button. Now, how do we populate that? Well, that's where I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to let Hossein take it from here. He's our life cycle assessment implementation manager at Climate Earth. Hossein, go ahead.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brian. I appreciate that. Can you guys see my screen with the PowerPoint presentation?
We can.
Awesome. Cool. So this is Hossein. Pleasure to meet you all. And my job today is to describe how easy the data collection process is. So basically, myself and my team in North America are here to help you to do the data collection. And every time we got a new customer, always I start with this timeline that shows the whole process of data collection. This is not a tough timeline, rough timeline, and it's pretty flexible based on the availability of your time and data, and we can work together to just get it done, right? So the first step when we sign a new contract is to kick off the project as soon as possible. After the kickoff call, we share with you some questionnaires that collects the company materials and the company supplier names. Easy. Then when you're done, what I will do, I will check them all and then I will directly import them into the system and immediately schedule a call with you to go to the next step, which is the plant setup. So now you have given us the name of your company materials and the name of your company suppliers. Now it's time to be more specific and assign them to each of your plants. And so you can add your plant materials and then you can add your supplier distances here in an online console. And if you happen to be uncomfortable using an online size console, we also have systems in Excel that could do the same job. And basically, when you are done with your plant setup related to the materials and the suppliers, it's time to talk about utilities. So for the EPD business, we need to collect the amount of utilities you have consumed during 1 year of production. So how much electricity, natural gas, diesel you have consumed, how much waste you have generated, or stuff like that. It could be the whole year of 2023, 22, partially 22, 23. Whenever you're more comfortable to collect that data is enough. When you're done with this part, which could be done on Excel or on the same online console, we can go to the very final piece, which is collecting initial mix designs for the purpose of verification. Based on an RMCA, we need between 5 up to 30 initial mix designs just for the purpose of verification. And when you guys got verified, you would have a username and password, and you can generate dozens of EPDs that are automatically verified unless it's a special case. So just for the purpose of verification, between 5 to 30 initial mix designs will be collected in Excel, so we could do our job for the verification piece. And everything you see below the blue line is basically myself or my team's job to do. I mean, we have to collect LCIs, make some test EPDs, prepare everything for you. We will prepare all of the verification documents and send it out to an RMCA. We will take care of it. All you need to do is just to contact Matthew and sign a contract with an RMCA. Everything is in our hand to be taken care of. So let me explain the whole concept here in this presentation. So I think Matthew did Brian did a wonderful job describing the EPD layout. So I would skip these slides and directly go to the data collection piece. So data collection has 4 phases. Phase number 1 is collecting company materials, as mentioned on the timeline, then suppliers. Phase number 3 is to be more plant specific. And phase number 4 is how do you want to design your EPD? That's a marketing piece. One thing that you need to keep in mind, we believe in follow-up meetings. So either weekly calls, bi-weekly calls, on-demand calls, whatever that helps to do the data collection. We love to meet you, talk to you, be in charge via email, phone call, or Zoom calls. So we could help you estimate some numbers, find the right numbers, do the right allocations, and just get it as soon as possible. So that's how we do that. And basically, you see a bunch of steps here, like up to 10 steps to be taken care of. There are 10 tiny steps that we will do one after each other, and we will do it together. You're not on your own, I promise you. So let's review them. Step number 1, or phase number 1, is company materials. After the kickoff call, I will share with you an Excel file that has 2 sheets. Sheet number 1 would address phase number 1. It has only 3 columns, and all you need to do is to copy the name of your internal material codes and names and types from your internal documents or third-party QC tools or whatever you have into this template. That's all you need to do. And I will just check it all and import it into the console. Easy. Phase number 2 is the second sheet of the questionnaire, which is much easier compared to the first one, because all you need to do is just to type down the name of your suppliers. So GCP, whatever, CCOB, Centrals, Cemex, whatever wherever you purchase from, you just type it down here for us. And I will import these names into the console. Or copy and paste from your documents, probably. Then we go to the third phase. With that questionnaire, we will be done with 2 phases. Now let's go to the third one. Be more plant specific. Now, as I told you, I have already imported the company materials and the suppliers. So it's time to assign the right materials to each plant. All you need to do is just to activate these checkboxes. In the online console, that I will share the username and password with you, and I will have a quick training how to use it. It's pretty straightforward, as easy as you can see in this screenshot. And all you can see, just open this window, activate the checkboxes that you have these materials in this selected plant. Like this is the Michigan plant, and you just click on save, and that's all. And if you use all of the materials that you have shared with us in this certain plant, that's much easier because you can select them all in one click and just click on save. 2 seconds of your time. Then we have a step number 2, which is the plant suppliers. That's the toughest step, to be honest with you, honestly, because you need to open Google Maps or some other tools like that to find the transportation distances, and that would take some time. So basically, for every supplier in each plant, you need to find the location of the supplier, the manufacturing facility, and we have multiple transportation modes that you can have them all at the same time, and you just need to find the distances through all of these online tools. And if you happen to have, I don't know, EV vehicles, CNG trucks or whatever, we are definitely flexible to consider that for your transportation modes. So you'll get a bunch of credits on those vehicles if you use them. But basically that's the whole concept. Then the next one is about mapping, which is the easiest for you guys, especially for a QC manager or product manager, because all you need to do is to just let us know among the list of materials and suppliers for each plant you have given us. You need to map each material to a supplier. So that's all you need to do. Like for example, for this material code, the supplier is this guys, and that's it. Let's go to the final piece in the online console. And as I told you, if you are not comfortable using the online console, we have Excel options for this piece as well. But basically what we collect is like the total amount of electricity in 12 months of production. So you just click on utilities. This field would open this window that you see in this screenshot, and just report the quantity of utilities that you have consumed in 1 year of production. Natural gas, diesel, whatever you have had, just report the quantity, check your bills, report it here, and save. That's all you need to do. In some cases, you may need our help to estimate some values, or help you to do some indirect calculations. That's why we insist to meet you or talk to you about all of these details. And that's the final piece, initial mix designs. For the purpose of verification, as I told you, we need between 5 to 30 initial mix designs, no less, not more. And all you need to do, we have an Excel template, and you just need to put them all here. And usually people copy and paste them from their internal documents. So basically item code, name, the quantity, and the unit of measure. That's all needs, that's all to be collected. And here's the marketing piece. I mean, you can have simple EPDs, you can have EPDs with a picture of, I don't know, mountains or your facility, or if you have a branding color, you can design your EPDs as you wish. We have this flexibility to do that. So that's it. I'm open to questions after everyone is done with the presentation. So.
Thank you, Hossein. That was highly informative. I think we'll move to the final piece of VPD creation, which is third-party verification. Matthew, would you like to take it away?
Hi all. First of all, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right. And my next question is, can you see my presentation?
That is correct. We can see your screen.
Perfect. Okay, I'm going to pick up exactly where Hossein left off on that helpful chart of timeline of work. The final stage in that was verification, as he mentioned, and I'm going to cover that. So here's a quick overview of what I'm going to be covering. How EPD verification works. I'm going to cover the state of verified EPDs in California and just give a little bit of a look at the market. And then finally, a market perspective from the viewpoint of a concrete producer. Once you have an EPD verified, what can you use it? How can you leverage it, essentially? What can you use it for? So in this, I'm going to be focusing on NRMCA's role in the EPD process. Which is as an EPD program operator. Now, what is a program operator? We facilitate verification and we publish EPDs online. That is what that means, and I'm going to get into both of those steps. So there are other program operators. So you can essentially think of us as a partner to Climate Earth, for example. The purpose of verification is to ensure that EPDs are valid, have been reviewed by a third party, and that everything was conducted fairly and accurately, right? So we serve as a third party partner to, of course, the concrete producer, to Climate Earth, and then NRMCA as a third party in that. There are other major program operators which work on concrete as well as other building materials. The ones with large logos are right here. NRMCA is the only one which focuses primarily on concrete, and ASTM, I think, also has a presence in concrete and other building materials. But NRMCA, we work on EPDs for concrete and all of its constituent materials, cement, aggregates, etc. There are also some minor program operators which have more narrow scope, either in terms of materials that they handle, or geographic areas, etc. And more maybe springing up recently because EPDs are not just on the rise for concretes and building materials, but across many industries. We have partners like Climate Earth, for example, as you can see on here, who actually create the software to generate EPDs. And we also partner with a number of third-party verifiers. This is crucial. NRMCA does not actually do the verification in-house. We work with a consultant. My job, I oversee this process and I help get them published. These third-party verifiers are highly qualified people in environmental and sustainability, many of whom have worked on the standards that these EPDs are written up to. So I'm going to overview the process here. So from the perspective of a ready-mix producer, you have got a draft EPD with Climate Earth. That's how we refer to these. It's in the draft stage because it's not verified yet. You've done all of those steps up to that point. You've got some mixed designs that you've got queued up that you want to produce EPDs for, but you need to get them verified before you can use them. Climate Earth can connect you with NRMCA, or you may end up connected with NRMCA first, for example, if you're an NRMCA member, and we will charge a small verification fee. It's a smaller proportion of the fee than it is to get set up in Carbon Clarity, for example, and set up a contract to have you verified. What we will then do is we'll select a third-party verifier. This is usually a blind process where you won't necessarily know which particular third-party verifier is going to be reviewing your EPDs until after the fact. The reason that's built in is to ensure fairness and to ensure that it increases the validity, essentially, of EPDs and how they're viewed. Because if you had no relation to the third-party verifier, for example, who was verifying these EPDs as a company, then it's very difficult to say that they were done improperly, right? It ensures that it's truly third-party. So we select one of our verifiers who will work on your EPDs. And then what we do is Climate Earth sends them all of these documents and backup materials, which I've seen overviewed, which include all of your calculations, data entry, etc. And that is used to check on the validity of the values and the validity of the way that everything was set up. Are these legitimate? Did you include everything that you have to report for an EPD, for example? And this is a drill Climate Earth has done many times, so there's never anything excluded, for example. They know perfectly well how to make sure that all of the parts of your supply chain are surveyed accurately, right? But we function essentially, the third-party verifier functions as a proofreader in this process. Sometimes a value ends up out of range and it's because somebody hit an extra zero or because a step in the process was glossed over, for example, rounded a very large number that should not have been rounded off. Those are the kind of things that they catch, essentially. Make sure that it's all done up to those standards. And then sends revisions and comments back to Climate Earth. So this is a hands-off process from the perspective of the ready-mix producer. Climate Earth is then able to make those revisions that are needed directly to your plant in their software, and then send it back for another check. When it's finally approved, your EPD gets verified. We essentially, the verifier and then our MCA, sign off on it and say, all right, this is up to standards, everything is correct, any errors have been fixed, and your EPD is verified. That is essentially a simple flip of the switch in the Climate Earth system. There's a few things that end up applied to it. The first, I'm going to zoom back right here, is this NRMCA certified EPD stamp. That is what your customers are going to be looking for when you submit an EPD, if it was in the spec, for example, as part of your submittal package, to ensure that it's valid. They're going to be looking for that NRMCA certified or any certified EPD stamp. The next thing that it gets is it gets the name and signature of a third-party verifier, whichever one of these third-party verifiers work on your EPD, and also a validity date. EPDs are valid according to ISO 14025, which is the governing standard for EPDs. They're valid for 5 years after verification. So if you have a plant set up in Climate Earth and you get it verified, it's valid for 5 years. You don't have to go through this process again for 5 years. And that's the period that will be printed on your EPD documents, your period of validity, based on when we complete this process. And then from there, you're able to use Climate Earth exactly as Brian and Hossein described. You have your mix designs, finalized. You can generate those EPDs, and the EPDs will have that verification information, which allows you to, validly use them. This process in total takes usually no more than 3 weeks. If it's a single plant that we're doing, or just a small amount of mix designs, it can be done in 2 weeks. But it really depends on the time of year, depends on the market, because it comes down to the availability of these third-party verifiers. They work on many different materials, not just concrete and concrete constituents, not even just building materials. There are EPDs for everything from food to consumer goods to electronics and appliances. So many of these verifiers work in multiple different fields, though many of them are more focused on building materials. They might work in finishes and plastics, etc. And they can get loaded down with work at certain times of the year. So that's why we give the flexibility of 2 to 3 weeks. However, we're pretty much always able to keep within the 3-week timeline. The one thing I would watch out for, I guess, is right about now, in the fall. August, September, October. It actually is lightened up now by November. That is the heaviest time of year for EPDs because it's heavy construction season in a lot of climates. Because it's cooling down, but it's not quite cold yet. So a lot of companies need their EPDs in time for pours. In addition, it's getting close to the end of the calendar year, usually as close to the end of the fiscal year, and so many companies want to pay for their EPD verifications before the end of the fiscal year, and that can end up a busy time. So I would say expect closer to the 3 weeks timeline at those times of year. As far as the fees for EPD verification from NRMCA, we obviously have a discount for our membership because membership dues help to pay for all of our services. So you can see what the fees are here. We do them in batches by number of plants. This is because once we get your company onto a verifier schedule, they're kind of able to look at everything at once and work more efficiently. So the idea is to discount you or charge a flat fee for a number of concrete plant locations at once. For an NRMCA member, it's $1,250 flat. This is not a per plant fee. It's a flat total for between 1 and 3 plants, $2,500 for 4 to 10 plants. For a non-member, it's $2,000 and $4,000. And we will, give you a quote if we're dealing with more than 10 plants. We have another level, we call it, of verification, where if you have verified some number of plants before and you've been happy with this experience and you want to do it with your company's other locations, for example, within 6 months, you can come back and say, hey, I did my first plant. That worked out well for me. I want to do my other 3 plants in the company. We will charge a reduced per plant rate. So normally 3 plants would have cost you, say, $1,250 if you were an NRMCA member. Now it would cost you a total of $900 because we'll do it at $300 per plant. The logic behind this, doing it within 6 months, is that we will assign you to the same verifier who worked on your plants before, who is familiar with your company's workflow, and is able to, within a reasonable amount of time in the last 6 months, is able to pull up their work on your previous plants and use it to inform and more quickly verify your new ones. So that's the logic there, essentially. And often that's how we find is beneficial for a lot of concrete producers to tackle this, is to verify a smaller number of plants, because that's how you're going to get your experience. That's how you're going to learn how this whole process works, right? Maybe this is coming down to 1 QA/QC professional and 1 or 2, people in QC who are handling this work, so they can only handle a certain amount at a time. So you do a certain number of plants, really get familiar with the process, make yourself efficient at this, train somebody perhaps. Through working with Climate Earth, you're going to get some of that training and some of that experience, right? And then you're able to do other plant applications. So what does publication look like when it's finalized? It's published at nrmca.org/EPD. That is our page. You receive, as I said before, the NRMCA certified EPD logo. It also receives a unique NRMCA EPD number. That is something specific to NRMCA. Each program operator has their own numbering system. Ours look like NRMCA EPD and then a 5-digit number. On nrmca.org/EPD, there's a database, a big table of the EPDs that we've published. Each one has a link with their EPD number, your company, and a description of the location and number of plants we verified. You click that link and you go to a unique web page for your company. So I'm going to use this one, Tilcon, Connecticut, as an example. This is a company that we verified earlier this year. The content on this page is actually being embedded directly from Climate Earth's website. It's live. It's an EPD browser. What that essentially means is you get a drop down for plants. You're able to select the plant and then hit get mixes here. And then you're going to get a list of mixes of mix EPDs, not those mix designs, of course, because that's internal. You're going to get the list of the mix names and their matching EPDs. That naming scheme can be whatever you use internally, right? And then you can download a PDF of each one instantly by pressing this button. Now, this is an instant process. So when you go on to, you're on Carbon Clarity, you're in Climate Earth software, you create a new mix design and you publish an EPD, right? That goes up. You will, right after that, be able to find it here through NRMCA's website, as well as download and send copies yourself. The purpose of this, first of all, according to 14025, ISO 14025, which is the underlying standard for EPDs and others, EPDs are public documents. You know, they've got to be publicly accessible to be valid, because that's the point, right? Point is that it's a disclosure document. So this is where they are going to publicly live. If your customer wants to check that your EPD is valid, if they want to check on any of the values in it, for example, they would go to NRMCA, your publisher. How would they find out that NRMCA is your publisher? Well, it says so on your EPD, right? And it has an EPD number. So if you were to submit this with a submittal package, they would see NRMCA certified. Let's say they want to check it, that it's valid. They go to NRMCA, they find your number, they find your, same mix name in there, which is going to be on your printed, or your PDF EPD, and they're able to find the matching copy on it. This also means that if you were to edit or change or discontinue an EPD through Climate Earth, that it would be changed or discontinued on nrmca.org. So, your plant may no longer produce a certain type of mix, right? You've changed suppliers, let's say, or you're just not working on that area. You can, stop producing that EPD and it wouldn't live here forever, essentially. So I want to give a brief picture of the market. As far as product-specific EPDs published by year, this is just what's been published by NRMCA. I can't speak to the other program operators. I also want to let you know that this is just the number of plants that we have verified. It's not the number of mix designs. The number of mix designs is this times, probably 100. This is the number of plants. We have seen a massive increase year over year in the number of plants that we're verifying and the number of companies that are getting product-specific EPDs. That's because they're following demand, right? I think it was Brian who previewed that California is gearing up to, institutionalize EPDs for public purchasing by 2025. Other states have already implemented that on different levels, right? GSA is piloting it. So there's really a lot of demand coming for EPDs and also coming from the private sector as well. So to give a little bit of a, here, I'll address this first. So first of all, I would just want to give a picture, and I'm sorry that this is the wrong slide, that it says Washington up at the top. This is California. I've edited the contents here. Just to give a picture of the number of product-specific EPDs that are currently out there and currently published. In the US, so I pulled these actually this morning from a site called Building Transparency. They have a tool called the EC3 tool, which is a database of EPDs. They pull it from NRMCA and from ASTM and from the other publishers. It's not every EPD out there because some companies actually opt out, and some program operators. However, it's a good idea, right? It's good at getting the scale of the market. So it probably has 90% of published EPDs on there. So I consider it like a search engine, like the Google of EPDs, right? In total in the US right now, there are 81,000 mix designs that have published EPDs out there, and 35,000, almost 36,000 of those are in California. So that's 44% of the U.S. Right? So it's a pretty hefty portion of those are in California. Just to give a little bit of a picture of what do the mix designs look like and what does the GWP look like. These stats come from the industry-wide EPD. That is a separate document, which I won't get into today, but we have lots of information about on nrmca.org that NRMCA publishes. Essentially consider it a survey of standard industry practice across the board so that we're able to gather, okay, when you're compared to a benchmark, what is that benchmark? That's what the industry-wide EPD and regional benchmarks produce. We break the country down by region. You know, as you all know, concrete is a local material. It's dependent on local supply. So you're only able to mix and to design what you can source. So each region is going to have different typical or industry standard, kind of standard practice mix designs. I just want to point out, this should say Pacific Southwest, that in this region, you know, the national average has about 18%. So this is, I'm using 4,000 PSI concrete because it's, you know, according to at least our data, the most common specified by volume, you know, the most common strength. So 4,000 PSI concrete, your average cubic yard of it is going to have about 18% of their cement replaced with SCMs, or supplementary cementitious materials, nationwide. In the Pacific Southwest region, that's actually going to be lower at around 12%, 13%. We've got hypotheses as to why, so about 4.4% lower. I think the main one is simply that there's lower supply of fly ash. Regions that rely more on coal burning power plants for their power are going to have a readily available local supply of fly ash, so they're going to be able to purchase it more cheaply and integrate it more into their concrete. What this leads to is a slightly higher GWP, about 5% higher across the region than the national average. If you are a forward-thinking concrete producer that is able to design really low GWPs, you know, really control your mix designs and achieve those low GWPs like was demonstrated, I think Brian demonstrated one that was over 20% reduction from the benchmark, this is a good thing for you. The reason is that that means you are outperforming, you know, you have a higher standard that you're being measured up to, right? And higher GWP, right, in this case is worse for environmental performance, which means that if you're able to, you know, really push the boundaries, get the low GWPs, you know, control all of your levers in terms of mix design there to do so, you're going to see a greater reduction from benchmark in this region than if you were compared to the national, for example, because that GWP would be down here. We think it's at the time, you know, right now a distinct advantage, and wherever we have the chance to advocate for it, NRMCA advocates for using a more local benchmark versus a more dispersed national benchmark because it's simply more accurate to the standard business practice in the area. Finally, some more drivers of the uptake of EPDs. We're really seeing it driven by the design community, architects and engineers through these challenges, which themselves are based on the Paris Climate Accord's CO2 reduction targets, right? These are just targeted toward the building sector. Architecture 2030 wants new buildings, developments, and major renovations to be carbon neutral by 2030. The AIA 2030 commitment is a little bit different. I don't think it has a strict target, but many, you know, architectural firms and owners have signed on to this. And the SE 2050 challenge is a little bit of another different deadline for net zero structures by 2050. All of these are really driving the use of GWP, the use of measuring GWP through EPDs, right, in the market, and that's why we've seen such an uptick. Some of the major users of these, big tech, as you can see on the right side of the screen, has a lot of ESG investment, and so they're going to be using GWP, and they're going to be looking for EPDs as the evidence to ensure it. Also, some very big construction management firms like Turner, Skanska, Lendlease. There are more, but I couldn't fit more logos onto this slide, so that would be large enough for you to read them. But we're really seeing the private sector take these up as well, and we're seeing it come through these AIA challenges, SE 2050 challenge, et cetera, as the guidance that they're using to start measuring GWP. So I'm going to skip a few of these because I think we're over time, but the last thing I want to note is that NRMCA is conducting a new version of the industry-wide EPD right now. If this is something that you have participated in the past or you're interested in participating in, to help us create that survey to get a better picture of the expected GWP from different regions of the country and nationally, I would encourage you to visit nrmca.org/EPD. If you're not interested in the industry-wide, please visit nrmca.org/EPD to learn more about our program as well, how we can help you through the process, and to see all of our published EPDs. I'm going to pass it back over to Q&A time, I believe.
Yeah, Matthew, actually, you can stop sharing your screen. We're going to have Dominica from Caltrans finish it off for us. Thank you, Dominica.
My mistake. Go ahead, Dominica.
Yeah. And Robert, I think we're running a little bit behind. Do you want me to shoot for 10, 20 so we have enough time for Q&A, like 10 minutes, or a different time?
We did book this one for 2 hours, knowing we had lots of folks, but because it's important, right? What our members need to hear from you, right, is important, because really it's the why, what's coming, right? And how are we going to work with you, right? Our primary partner, to make sure that together we're making it happen. So I would feel free to use the next 30 minutes and then we'll go into Q&A and go from there.
Perfect. I was gonna say, I heard no time limits then. I'll share my screen. Thank you, Robert.
You bet.
All right. So as Robert mentioned earlier, my name is Dominica Ercolini. I'm a branch chief here at METS within Caltrans, and I'll be walking you through essentially where Caltrans is with the implementation of EPDs. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Buy Clean California Act. We'll talk about the 2019 pilot projects that we did. We'll discuss the Everyday Counts initiative and Caltrans' involvement in that, as well as the FHWA Climate Challenge. I'll share our long-term strategy and what we're looking to use these EPDs for, and then we'll open it up for questions. So the Buy Clean California Act, this went into law in 2017, and excuse me, what they essentially did was require our agency, as well as other agencies within the state of California, to collect EPDs for carbon steel rebar, structural steel, flat glass, and mineral wool board insulation. And so these aren't obviously asphalt or concrete, but the reason why I want to bring this up is because we learned a lot from the Buy Clean California Act and implementing, and there's some things that we want to continue to do and take from what we did there and implement it for new materials that perhaps are not legislated, such as asphalt and concrete. So one of the main things that we really thought that the Buy Clean California Act did correctly was phase it in. So we didn't just go from one day where we didn't require EPDs to all of a sudden we required everyone to provide EPDs. We didn't feel like that would be fair. So this phased approach, right? First, we just were requesting existing EPDs because we wanted to see where the industry was at in collecting them. And then we phased into requiring EPDs. For the Buy Clean California Act, we do have thresholds, global warming potential limits, and that was the responsibility of the Department of General Services. And so they put together their legislative report, which describes how they came up with their limits. And that brought us to our phase 3, which was requiring EPDs that meet the threshold, and then we needed to get those EPDs before we can install the material. So that's a legal requirement we have. We would intend to follow a similar approach for any new materials that we try to implement. The only difference is right now we're not looking at doing the global warming potential limits. We're looking more towards doing like an incentive program, as I think pretty much everyone before me mentioned GSA, and they're like gold, silver, bronze approach. Caltrans is looking at incorporating something similar. Although that's going to be future long-term kind of plan. Another thing that we did with the Bike Lane California Act is that we had project criteria as well as quantity criteria, meaning that we didn't require an EPD for every material that came onto project for every single project. For project criteria, a project needs to be over $1 million for the total bid, as well as 175 or more working days. And then if the project meets both of those requirements, then we look at the quantity of the material. So for example, carbon steel rebar, the EPD does not go into effect until you have more than 20,000 pounds of carbon steel rebar or 5,000 pounds for structural steel. And these limits were all developed to balance out the cost of developing the EPD, the cost of the material, how long the project was, how long it takes to develop an EPD. So this was all a balancing act. And essentially what these numbers get us to is we're quantifying or getting global warming potential information for 90% of the material. But when you're actually looking at the number of projects that were requiring EPDs, it's actually quite small. In 2022, when the legislation went live, where we went into this phase 3, we've awarded since then just over 700 projects. As far as the project criteria alone, we only actually require EPDs for 200 of those projects. And so what that is supposed to show is that we have a lot of really small projects. And so we don't want to focus on those. EPDs can be a lot of work administratively. And so we really wanted to focus onto those bigger projects that have the vast majority of the projects, or the vast majority of the materials, rather. Another thing that we did with the Bike Lane California Act that we intend to continue doing for new materials as we incorporate them is our data collection system. So we use an internal database that we call DIME, and this is where we store all of our EPD data, as well as where the contractor goes to submit the quantities. And it's intended to be a quite simple process. You look through, you find your EPD, and then you type in there how much of the quantity you've shipped to the job site. So we think that system works quite well, and so we plan on doing that for future materials. One thing that we plan on doing differently, we've developed an authorized materials list for our structural steel and carbon steel rebar. And so that kind of makes it easier for our contractors and our resident engineers or our construction staff to look up and find the various available mills. But because we're looking at additional materials, so like asphalt and concrete, there's so many more mixes. So we're probably not going to take this route this time. It'll probably all be managed through DIME. In 2019, we did some pilot projects, and we piloted 7 materials that we collected EPDs for. 4 of them were the ones that I mentioned before that were through the Bike Lane California Act, structural steel, carbon steel rebar, mineral wool board insulation, and flat glass. And then we also did 3 additional self-piloted materials that were selected because they're high volume construction materials, so concrete, asphalt, and aggregate. Especially at this time, we had a feeling that there's going to be more materials added to the Bike Lane California Act, and these 3 materials were the ones that made the most sense for them to look at and target next. And so we really wanted to get ahead of the legislation so that we could take a look at what are the things that we're going to run into, the issues, so that we can better help support our legislators when we see these proposed legislations come through. And we see them. We've seen, since the Bike Lane California Act went into legislation, we've seen proposed legislation for these types of materials, concrete, asphalt, and aggregate. Although I haven't seen one actually go through all the way, but if we're seeing it proposed, there's a good chance that they might be interested in doing that in the future. And so we had 7 projects. 3 of them required concrete EPDs, 5 of them required asphalt, and 4 of them required EPDs for aggregate. And we learned quite a bit through that process. One of them was in regards to data collection. We learned that our DIME system, we were labeling everything the same way, and we realized that different PCRs label things differently, and so we needed to make a custom user base for each of the different PCRs to make it easier for the folks that are inputting the data. We learned that expiration of PCRs, that it could happen, right? It did happen. We had a PCR that expired and then was not replaced. I believe it took them like 3 months to do that. And so we had to figure out what do we do, and essentially what we ended up on was we just don't require EPDs. If there's no valid PCR, it's not fair for us to require an EPD if no one can make a new one during that time frame. Roles and responsibilities. Keep in mind this was 2019, and so a lot of contractors didn't even know what an EPD was, where they get one from. And so we learned that we needed to do a lot of communication, and a big thank you to our industry partners who do a lot of this communication on our behalf, educating their members about what EPDs are. And we ourselves do a lot of outreach as well, from the contractor all the way down the supply chain to where we're actually trying to get the EPD from. So communication, lots of communication until this gets completely normalized. Compliance. Some materials are easier to verify compliance than others. Just making sure what material comes to your job site versus what you received your EPD for, making sure that those are the same thing. Also, constituent materials. This is a big one. Making sure that the additives in a mix, there's certain data gaps, and we realized in 2019 that there were data gaps for a lot of these chemical additives. And I think the industry has made a lot of progress on this front, although I think there still is a few data gaps in this area. But essentially, even if it's a small quantity of something, it could have a big impact on your EPD mix, but we won't know until we get that data. For everyday counts, for those that are not familiar with EDC, this is something that FHWA does every couple of years. They take a look at the different technologies that maybe are being underutilized in the US, and they pick out a few of them, and then states participate to implement or incorporate those innovations into their specifications. And for this particular year, this set 23 to 2024, we're looking at EPDs as one of those innovations, and Caltrans is participating. And so and I think actually one of the graphs that we saw earlier, where we went from like developmental stage to institutionalized stage, those 2 different maps. So this is where that comes from. So we're all asked to develop basically a starting phase. Where are you at, and then where your future goals will be. And so we had to break it down in kind of 2 things, because we're already institutionalized for Biking California Act. For structural steel and rebar, we're already collecting EPDs for it's incorporated into our specifications. But concrete and asphalt, we're just getting started. We're in the development stage. As far as our goals and where we want to be, so for Biking California Act, it's mostly just improving our specifications, making it as simple as possible administratively to incorporate the EPDs into our projects. On the concrete and asphalt side, however, we have a few more goals. And so one of them is the FHWA Climate Challenge, which I'll talk about a little bit more in just a minute. We also want to develop some draft specification language where we're incentivizing GHG reduction. we also want to encourage the use of facility-specific raw material data. And what that means is, right, like, are you using for your aggregate, are you using your actual supplier of aggregate to as part of your EPD, or are you using an industry average? And so, of course, we know that depending on what's available, right, you're going to use the best thing that you have available, but we're really trying to encourage using as much as we can the facility-specific raw data. We also want to support small businesses, and that's going to be through a lot of outreach and training and really communication of any financial incentives that are going to be out there. And then our last bullet on here, but really probably one of the most important ones on here, we would like to incorporate EPD requirements for concrete and asphalt by July of 2025. And so that brings me to the FHWA Climate Challenge. So this is one of those opportunities, something that we're trying to do to essentially prepare our concrete and asphalt plants to be ready for those changes in July of 2025. So FHWA had some funding, I want to say was around $7 million. And they basically let the states propose projects that met their goal, which for FHWA, their goal was to quantify greenhouse gas emissions from materials and practices for design, construction, and maintenance of pavements. And so we proposed a project. Our project was essentially, we wanted to provide concrete and asphalt plants access to financial incentives for the preparation of EPDs. And so we were awarded $312,000 to, figure out a way to get some money back to the concrete and asphalt plants for developing these EPDs. And so we did some outreach initially through our surveys, and it was primarily thanks to our partners, CalOp and CALCIMA, for sharing with their industry members, as well as working through PMPC, the Pavement Materials and Partnering Committee, where essentially, for those that aren't familiar, it's how we communicate, how we work together, Caltrans and industry, and making sure that we're going in the same direction, and it gives industry an opportunity to share their views. I see, Robert, you unmasked yourself, so I'm sure you wanted to say something.
You and I know what the PMPC is, and the members involved know, but it's worth making sure all members know. So the PMPC is a formal partnering program with Caltrans. The PMPC has a myriad of committees, and all the innovations that ultimately end up in spec work through the PMPC, and it's made up of Caltrans executives like Dominica and her colleagues, and industry executives that volunteer and get appointed to the various committees. So it is that place where Caltrans, working with industry on practical solutions, get to run test pilots, right? Get to try things out, get to work through things to make sure that as new specs come out, they hit the road in a way that's achievable and can be delivered. So it's important to know who the PMPC is. If a member wants to be part of the PMPC, certainly on the concrete side, I would encourage them to talk to Charlie Ray. Both Charlie Ray and Tony Lemus are in a leadership role with the Caltrans PMPC Pavement Materials Partnering Committee. And all the talent at Caltrans interacts with all the talent of industry there to bring things to fruition. So I just wanted to add that, Dominica, for those that may not know. So thank you. I'll be quiet again.
Thank you, Robert. Yes, no, that's so important. And I know we got a lot of questions about that yesterday. So I'm glad you added that additional information. So through that communication, through that survey that we did earlier this year, we were able to establish our requirements. We're currently in the testing phase where we're trying to get a couple of folks through the program from start to finish, trying to iron out any issues, because we want to make it, once we officially launch, we're looking to do that by the end of this month. We want it to be as streamlined as possible. And so we're getting through all those those little things now so that we can make it easier for everybody else. And of course, we're gonna when we do launch, we're gonna post everything on our website, as well as work through our industry partners, such as CALCIMA, to communicate with everybody here. And so, what is the program? How much are we trying to reimburse? We can do up to $1,500 per plant location. And you can also do up to 3 plants per material. And when I say per material, I mean concrete versus asphalt. So if you are someone that produces both concrete and asphalt, you'd be eligible for up to $9,000 if you have 3 concrete plants and 3 asphalt plants that you want to participate in this pilot program. So this is a very we tried to make it as simple as possible. Step one, when we launch this, there's going to be a sign up for the pilot program. And what that does is you sign up, you let us know which facility locations and what material you're looking to sign up for. And then that'll have us, assuming that there's funding available, we're going to allot that money and hold it for you for 6 months. So it's basically signing up and getting your place in line. Step 2 is the hard part for you guys, right? Is developing that EPD. I know different folks are in different stages of gathering that data that's needed that our previous presenters had shared. So we know that it can, if you're very in the beginning stages of collecting data, it could take up to a year worth of data if you haven't been able to collect data before this. And so if you're in that situation where it's going to take you more than 6 months, just communicate with us. We do want assurances that you are actually collecting data during that time, because we have limits on when we can spend this money. So we don't want to hold funds if you're most likely not going to be able to complete your EPD by the end of that year. But we want to be open. We want to work with you. But for now, we're having that 6 months to develop your EPD and submit it to us. And so that's step 3, submitting the data. We'll have a link where you submit your actual EPD data. You would have to email us your PDF of your EPD, as well as your mix design. And just to note, for clarification, the mix design is not something that we will be sharing. This is for our internal use of comparing the global warming potential limits, or not limits, but just the global warming potential numbers versus the mix design. We have a couple of forms that are directly related to purchasing through the state. And then you would provide us an invoice for $1,500, $3,000, $4,500, depending on what, how many facilities you have. So that's kind of in a nutshell what the process would look like. We do have some general requirements for the EPDs, and I think a lot of these were addressed in the earlier presentations today. So we want a cradle to gate type 3 EPD. We want it to be product and facility specific. A Caltrans requirement would be we want these facilities to be on the MPQP list. This gives us assurances that you're actually providing material for Caltrans, because we really want to collect data for the mixes and the plants that do work for Caltrans specifically. And so that's where the next requirement is. We want whatever mixture you're submitting it for to be previously used on a Caltrans project. It needs to be developed in accordance to the most recent PCR, which I think whenever you're using any of these softwares, that's what they're basing their tools off of, is the latest PCR. They need to be third-party verified, which Matthew went into a lot of detail of what is involved there. And then the EPD date of issue needs to be on or after April 1st of 2023. And we picked this date because this is around the time when we start to talk to our partners in PNPC about this program. And so that was the date for some of those folks that, heard this and immediately started to go down this path. We wanted to make sure that we were capturing those folks as well. We do have some additional requirements. One of them is we want to know the source of the binder or the cement data. And what we mean by that is are you using an industry average, or are you using the actual specific information from a specific cement manufacturer? And the reason for this is it allows us to understand the data a little bit better. I mentioned earlier the mix design, we do require that. Again, we're not going to be sharing that with the public. And then we need to have the reimbursement package, so your EPD complete by December 31st, 2024. And that's because we have to use the funds within a certain time for FHWA. And so that's why we selected December 31st, 2024. I also wanted to share our long-term strategy. What I really want to have you take from this, right now we're in the EPD collection for concrete and asphalt. We do plan on developing methodology for concrete and asphalt global warming potential limits. But this isn't so that we're not looking to set global warming potential limits, but if we're going to do an incentive program, we need to understand what those limits would potentially look like, because that's how we would go about developing incentives as well. And then pretty much all the rest of these items are all about life cycle assessment. So EPDs are a piece of the pie, right? We're just looking at the manufacturing of that material. We're not looking at the whole life cycle. But what we would like to do, and why we really want to put a focus on EPDs, is because EPDs are a big part of that whole life cycle, and we want to get data that's as good as we can get it before we start looking at the whole life cycle. And so our future goals, we're trying to get towards that life cycle, so we can see not only what it takes to make that material, but then what does it take to maintain that material, as well as other factors. And that's what the life cycle does. So just some key takeaways. The department is looking to follow a similar strategy that we took for the Bike in California Act, and implement what we learned, what we liked for the asphalt and concrete. We also have our FHWA Climate Challenge, where we're trying to provide financial incentives for the preparation of EPDs. We have a long-term strategy that is live, right? Where if we need to change directions, and that's what we're going to do. Everything is, new. We're new to this, and we're trying to figure it out, and that's why we're working through our PMPC group, so that we can work together to figure out what works and what doesn't. And then everyone plays a role in the successful implementation. We can't do this without you guys and your participation. And so I'm so glad to see all the folks that joined today. It shows your commitment and your interest in this. And so thank you very much for your time. And I will open it up to questions. Robert, if you wanted to take it from there.
You bet. We do have a one question. If you guys look at the Q&A, when they're looking at a 3 to 5 summary of the bigger picture project and agency asks for type 3 product specific third-party verified EPDs. If you guys can take a look at that question and let me know who can help us answer that question. That looks like a sane Brian Matthew question to me, other than the mandates. And while you guys are taking a look at that, let me ask a couple of questions of Dominica. So right now, Caltrans is slated to require, correct me, I'm asking if this is accurate, is slated to require EPDs mid 2025, correct?
Correct. We have our 2025 specifications, and they would be incorporated into that round.
But you're willing to accept them now, right? And create the body of knowledge.
Yes.
Which is something we're encouraging as CALCIMA, is for producers to get them in, right? We don't want to get caught flat-footed. We need to stay ahead of what the next change might be in federal policy. whether it's coming out of Congress or the administration, where we change from, if I understand it correctly now, to put it in plain English, for folks like me, right now there's a carrot. It's going to turn into a stick pretty quick, I would imagine, on some of the federal funding, as we look at this, and our goal is to get ahead of that. Is that accurate, Dominica?
Yes, exactly. So we're and I know at the federal level there's other incentive programs that I think they're working on developing. This is the FHW Climate Challenge is like our effort with dangling the carrot. Hey, let's get ready now. And so that way it takes time to develop these. It takes a moment to really learn about how to gather all this information. And so we want everyone to do that now so that by July of 2025, once we've seen this go into projects, everybody's ready to go. And then we're trying to dangle that $1,500 or more to kind of encourage people to start now.
And two slightly maybe smaller questions, and then we're going to jump to the question on the screen. And I see Hussein's working on it, and I see that twinkle in Brian's eye. So we'll get there, but Caltrans going after, one of the Department of Energy grants, right? I understand it takes a while to get your number and to get registered, et cetera. What should we know about that, and what can we do to help you? Mm-hmm. Right? We as industry want to help Caltrans go after and get the grants that are available at the federal level to help all of us as we're in this together. Any thoughts on that?
So we're in the early stages of starting to have these conversations. And I'm so glad. I know you offered yesterday as well to help us through this. I think, or where I'm foreseeing, I think this is going to be a much bigger effort than just me and my group, and so it's going to be, I think, a much
It's
bigger
kind of unfair to dump this on you, but you're with us today, so
yes, and I could definitely see. I think at Caltrans we're going to need to get our ducks in a row and a vision of what we'd like to do, and then I'm sure that they're going to want to work through PMPC as well, or at least share that information. And get support wherever we can.
I guess we got to get, as I understand it, we're going to talk about this more next week at conference, but you got to get on the list, right? So you got to get listed and recognized and be given a number to even be at the table as you're developing. So we'll get more data on that, Dominica, and you and I'll loop back next week. But with that, Brian, Hussein, thoughts on that question that was asked? Is there something you could share? Because if we're getting asked by one, we're getting asked by many.
Yeah, of course. So it looks like they're saying after they go through the process, they've partnered with us, they produced an EPD, it gets third-party verified. And so now they have an EPD that does or does not meet agency project requirements. I think from our side, project requirements, if there's a GWP threshold, you'd be able to know what the GWP on the document is. If it's an agency requirement, I think Dominica did a really good job going through those. That you must be, the material must have been used on a Caltrans product. There are certain date thresholds that you have to meet. She shared a list of that. And then I'm sure this is being recorded, so this will be shared. But Dominica, I think you had a couple bullet points of requirements to qualify for the 1,500.
Yeah. So and I think from for what you mentioned earlier, it sounds like what Climate Earth is doing is on par with that, in the sense of, we're looking for product and facility specific EPDs, where we have those dates, right? It has to be issued after April 1st of this year. We wanted it to be on Caltrans projects before the material used on Caltrans projects before, and third-party verified, which I think you guys went through all of that today.
Correct. Yeah. So we would tick all of the boxes except for whether it had been used previously on a Caltrans project. And that's something, if it has been, you could easily submit. I would like to say that Climate Earth, as CALCIMA members, we definitely want to be there for the whole entire organization. We're offering a 10% discount to all CALCIMA members for LCA and setup costs. So like Dominica and Caltrans and trying to encourage adoptions of these documents, we'd like to do our part as well. 10% off LCA and setup costs if you'd like to come on board and use our services as well.
And I'll just make a point on that, right? We're really thrilled as we went over the last year and a half and looked at who do we need as partners, right? Having Climate Earth and others be, members of CALCIMA and then come in with a commitment to be a full partner and offer a discount. I would imagine the initial dialogue is free, right? And I mean, because some folks may have questions and we want to encourage you, ask Brian as you're trying to ascertain, right? Are you ready to bring a partner on board to do this? We're also going to get Dominica together with our partners in the EPD world, our members, to make sure she's got those answers as well. So as we move through the coming months, right, this is going to get more cohesive because as we identified, earlier in the year, the time for just yabba dabba is over. It's time to do, right? Enough yabba dabba, time for do. You're supposed to chuckle. Yeah, Dominica knows who I'm channeling. Scooby Doo. That's right. So, but we keep talking, but a lot of companies in our industry, and we here at CALCIMA with you, our members, are on the do stage. This has been a great bootstraps dig in, but we know there's lots more discussion. Companies are at every level of engagement and adoption on this, and our job is to make sure we collectively can be successful. So with that, I'll just throw up, it's the Flintstones. Thank you to whoever corrected me, and you'll have to let me know who that was at conference. I appreciate that. Closing thoughts. So we'll start with Dominica, and then we'll run to Climate Earth and then to Matthew. Dominica, closing thoughts?
Sure. For me, I think, all the folks that decided to join today, CALCIMA putting this together, this is such a great step. I encourage you to take advantage of some of the financial incentives that are out right now, not even just from Caltrans, but at the federal level as well. And I'm really excited to see all the folks here. And I hope to see more EPDs here soon. Thank you.
Brian Hussein?
Yeah, let's move to us. I would say, listen, we want to be seen as a resource to CALCIMA. If you have EPD questions, if anything doesn't seem clear, just reach out to me. My email is Brian with an I, BRIAN @Climate Earth. We're here to answer any questions that you might have. Be a resource if you need more information. I think you'll see that EPDs are moving from something that was a lead criteria into something that has a whole lot more importance put behind it. So don't wait. You can see a shift is coming as states adopt these, as Caltrans talks about adopting these documents and building a database. The time is now.
Anything else to say? Okay, and then before I go to Matthew, I just got to pick on you, Matthew, just a little bit, right? When did you move to Milwaukee? Yesterday?
Yesterday. So sorry about my technical difficulties
and you still
getting
made
on late.
it today. So we thank you for your commitment. So I did need to make sure I referenced that for the team, right? Because you're on the team, and we appreciate our national partners tremendously. Closing thoughts?
Yeah, I want to echo what you just said, Dominica and Brian. Now's the time. Absolutely, we're on the team, CALCIMA. We have a close partnership as well, of course, as Climate Earth, and so it's a good team to be on. And don't wait. Reach out to us if you're an NRMCA member. Of course, you can. If you're a producer, you can take advantage of discounts on verification. If you're not an NRMCA member, you can absolutely work with us to get your EPD published all the same. We can help guide you through the process. Climate Earth can help guide you through the process, and we work with that together. We work on that together. So whoever you email first, you can, me, Brian, Hussein, etc. We'll make sure we get you over the finish line in time for whatever you need your EPDs for. Just don't wait. Give us all a contact. And Robert, will they be able to receive our contact info after this?
They will. So we'll be following up with your contact info as well as, access to review this. Those that subscribe to the program today will have access to this. this video.
Perfect.
There's a process that goes into something, whatever happens afterwards, but we'll get it out. Right now, the team's got their running boots on. I do need to throw a plug at Abby because I failed to yesterday. You know, conference really for us starts this weekend as the team, your professional staff at CALCIMA flies down and gets everything ready to go. And then starting on Monday, we hit early with meetings. And Abby, Stephanie, and the team were able to put these together because members were saying we need it. And the nice thing is, right, it ties in really well with some of the big picture discussions we're going to have over next week. So we'll get this back out to folks that subscribed, and then other members. If you know another member that needs some support and you want to punt them our way, we'll make sure we get them plugged in. But a huge thank you to Abby and the rest of the team for taking time out. You know, some of our policy issues don't wait for our convenient schedule, and I know Abby and Stephanie really jumped through some hoops to help us pull these together in advance of conference. But I look forward to seeing everybody next week at conference, and look forward to finding out who picks on me about mixing up my childhood cartoons. On that note, I want to tell everybody to have a great day.